Early in the case, one of the first things that any lawyer is going to have to think about and look at is how they're going to approach discovery in the particular case. Now, discovery is the process where each side gets and gives information to the other side about their case. Generally speaking, at the very beginning of the case, the traditional way, or at least the way that's most commonly done, particularly if you're a new lawyer, you'll talk to some old lawyer, or a lawyer that has experience in the particular kind of case that you're handling, and you'll get whatever discovery they use for that kind of case. And generally it's massive amounts of interrogatories, massive amounts of requests for production, massive amounts of everything, and including deposition on written questions, for example. And go through, change the names, change plaintiff to plaintiffs, or whatever you need to do, change his to her, and then they send that out. And, old lawyers warn about this practice. In fact, there's a lot of older lawyers, I shouldn't say old, experienced lawyers, I know, that when a new lawyer, a young lawyer, asks for their discovery requests, they will warn them that no, you need to do your own, you need to think about your own. And I appreciate where they're coming from. I'm not saying they're wrong. But I think looking at old discovery requests, and also discovery requests that other lawyers have done that have been doing it a long time, it's a really good way to start. But the question is, are you going to look at what they do, understand what they're doing, understand what they're trying to get, or are you just going to copy because you're lazy and it's easier than thinking about it and doing it yourself? And generally speaking, I do it a little bit differently than a lot of other attorneys. I generally try to start very small with my discovery. I won't send out a whole bunch of interrogatories. You're limited to 25, which is really plenty. But even for things you're not limited to, just because you can ask for a whole bunch doesn't mean it's necessarily a good procedure to ask for a whole bunch. I like to sit down, think a little bit about what the case is really about. If I represent, for example, a business owner that was taken advantage of by his partner or partners, which happens a good amount, it's a lot of what we do. I'll think about, well, what's this about? What payments is this about? A lot of times it's about, well, you got how much money and my guy got how much money. And so you can really, if you think about it, you can focus your discovery request, for example, interrogatories on how much money did you get, how much money did I get? And there's advantages to this. In my view, in my practice, it's worked very well. I like how it works out. But one advantage that I don't know if, it's not something that most people would think about necessarily right away, but in my experience, when you present a motion to compel to a judge, motion to compel is where you're telling a judge, look, either they didn't provide any discovery responses, which they'll get rightly so hammered on, or they didn't provide adequate responses, or they're providing a whole bunch of just the same objections over and over again. If you have 37 requests for production that the judge doesn't have time to look at, the judge is going to be likely to just kind of glaze over and say, you know what, okay, get them what they're supposed to get, or look through it, or can you kind of narrow this down for me? Whereas if you only have 3 or 4, you're kind of taking away a lot of the cover for the other side to say, look, I went through this, I kind of answered it. It's pretty clear. We're asking for some very specific, very well-tailored discovery here, and it puts them in a really bad position if they don't provide it. Also keep in mind, in Texas, there's no limits on the number of times that you can send discovery requests. In some places, my understanding used to be that there was a limited amount of sets of discovery you can send. That certainly isn't how it is in Texas as of right now. So you can send out 3 interrogatories, which are basically questions for the other side to answer. Send out a couple requests for production, which is requesting documents or physical items that you can either have copies of or look at. You can do it again and again and again. And that way, when you're providing the judge with a motion to compel, if there's some sort of discovery fight, you're providing the judge very carefully tailored questions, as opposed to just saying, hey, we're asking for everything, and it really kind of cuts down on the foolishness, which wastes your time and both sides' money, which really isn't in anybody's interest. Another thing that I think should be considered when trying to figure out how to approach the discovery is when do you want to take your depositions? Traditionally, after the big mountain of discovery where the boxes and boxes of paper are exchanged, then depositions are taken. Depositions are sitting down and asking a witness, often a party, but sometimes just a witness, questions about the case. Well, depositions can really get you a lot of really good information really quickly. And frankly, a lot of times it's easier than going through, putting questions in writing, sending it to the other side. They object, maybe it's frivolous, maybe it's not. I'm a big fan of just getting to the point, putting someone under oath. It doesn't have to be tremendously expensive. It's not unusual in our practice that we just take depositions with a camera, kind of like the one I'm using right now. Just set it up, find out, is it a good witness? Are they lying? Are they telling the truth? You can learn a lot about your case just by sitting the other side down in front of a camera and asking them questions. You can get an impression, you can learn things that you don't necessarily get from a piece of paper. So I'm a huge fan of that. If there's something that you want to use later, there are procedures you can use to turn that into the traditional transcript that the judges are used to seeing. Sometimes you don't have to do that. And generally speaking, once you get those depositions, it saves a lot of time, a lot of work. It gives you a very good idea where you're going with the case. So I'm a big fan of very targeted discovery from the beginning, and I'm a big fan of taking depositions quickly. Figure out what's going on, and then that'll help you make intelligent decisions moving forward with your case.